away we go. It's just me at the moment. Not sure if Eric, Risk, or a third guy is going to join. Either way, it must go on. So let's see what's in the news for me to rant about, or something like that. Australian authorities said social media platforms should not demand age verification for all account holders from December. When a ban on children under 16 having accounts goes into effect, the platform faces fines of up to 50 million Australian dollars for systemic failures to prevent children younger than 16 from holding accounts. The government seeks to keep platform users' data as private as possible, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution to enforcing the world's first legislation. So, how on earth are you going to tell if users are over 16 or not if there isn't any form of verification on age of each user? And how would such verification even work anyway? I know face scan is one thing, but face scans isn't enough. There has to be something else. So Australia isn't going to enforce platforms to do age verification tests, yet platforms will be fined if they fail to prevent children under 16 from using or having an account on social media platforms. I think it sounds like an excuse for the Australian government to fine social media platforms. No, I think that's it. This is what I was been thinking. When people say that whatever the legislation they are passing, they're doing it for the children. Well, at least that they say they do it for the children. But no, this just shows that the governments don't give a damn about children's safety or whatever they see online. Now, everyone is open to arguments and opinions about this. However, I read it, it just sounds like an excuse for the Australian government to fine companies so they can get whatever money they find from those social media platforms to fund whatever is in the national budget. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And also, I think Risk and or Eric will also bring this up. When people say they are passing legislation that protects children from harmful content and so on, who's not to say that said legislation could also apply to anyone else that isn't a child? I'm just saying. But from what I just read, Australia is so platforms could face fines of 50 million Australian dollars for systemic failures to prevent children younger than 16 from holding accounts, yet Australian authorities said social media platforms should not or would not demand age verification for all account holders from December. It makes no sense. So platforms like X, Y, and Z, you can't have users of that age group, but we're not demanding that you're putting some kind of verification to prevent those kinds of users from entering the platform. Well, I'm just saying, I think it just shows that I don't think that they give a toss. They couldn't care less about the children or young individuals, about their safety or what they see online. It's just an excuse to get some extra couple dollars into the federal budget and then spend on said budget for whatever they want to spend it on. That's just how I see it. Just another cry for help financially. It's just ridiculous. Honestly, I expected better from Australia, but oh well. Beggars can't be choosers. Open Cooperation Forum at China International Fair for Trade in Services 2025 held. The, the China International Fair for Trade in Services, the largest and most comprehensive global services trade event, officially opened on September 10th, 2025 in Beijing. An open cooperation forum with the theme Openness and Collaboration for a Shared Future was held at the Xiaogang Park, bringing together experts, government representatives, and business leaders from various countries to discuss international cooperation and economic collaboration. Beijing's Vice Mayor, Sima Hong, highlighted the city's commitment to implementing reforms, expanding openness, and creating a business environment aligned with the new development para paradigm, expressing confidence in Xingshan's potential to integrate industrial heritage with modern vitality. Wow, that sounds quite promising. Very promising. Well, it's a shame that China isn't doing very well on the world stage at the moment. The best I've heard so far is like a talk between them and the US about a certain app that everybody is already aware of and most likely use at least once every day. So yeah, well, there's not much I can say about China. However, it's doing something to keep itself afloat, despite so many uncertainties. And who knows, it may become a success. Because I've heard this is the first. I've heard that this is a, well, at least it read the summary that this is an event that officially opened like this year. So if this is the first time, then let's see how well it goes. It could do well. Actually, it will do well because, well, China has a very big population, and people from all over China will certainly want to get over to Beijing and look at what is the nation has to offer, and other nations and whoever's involved, something to offer. Spain votes to boycott Eurovision if Israel competes. Well, not surprised at that, that's for sure. Spain's public broadcaster RTVE voted on Tuesday to boycott Eurovision if Israel participates in the next contest. This decision follows calls by Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and threats by the Netherlands, Ireland, Slovenia, and Iceland to exclude Israel over its Gaza military campaign. The RTVE board met in Madrid and approved the boycott with 10 votes in favour, 4 against, and 1 abstention amid diplomatic tensions and protests over Israeli actions. RTVE acknowledged the strong emotions and perspectives related to the current situation in the Middle East, while the European Broadcasting Union is engaging with its members to determine how best to address participation and political sensitivities surrounding the contest. Spain, the first of the Big Five financial backers to take this step, joins other countries challenging Israel's participation, potentially complicating the Eurovision Song Contest scheduled in May in Vienna. Well, I have one thing to say. About time. I remember when October 7th happened. Of course, there were a lot of broadcasters that have said that we will not take part in Eurovision if Israel's a part of it. But yet, they have not mentioned anything else besides dissatisfaction or went on to describe additional details about even not taking part at all if Israel is to take part. Well, now we've gotten to a moment in time where now nations are not going to compete if Israel is going to be there. And of course, to make matters a lot more complicated, if Israel is not to take part in Eurovision, German broadcasters have said they too will not take part. So, yeah, there's so much going on. And the thing is, when people talk about participation, they think it's about the national government that has a say in this. But no, it's the country's broadcasters, or at least the broadcaster that is going to broadcast Eurovision. Now, I think there was a statement from a German broadcaster that would broadcast Eurovision. They said, I think somewhere along the lines of, if Israel, well, I know one thing for sure, that whatever happens with Israel, German broadcasters, although they don't have much of a say on the situation, they are at least aware of what on earth is going on this year, or at least what's going to happen in Vienna. Well, there's a saying, actions speak louder than words. It's not enough to say, we're not taking part, we want to see action. And the action of the broadcasters that say, we will not take part, actually saying we are actually withdrawing. We are no longer taking part under any circumstance because of Israel being at the competition. That's at least what I've heard so far. And if you have at least that, at least 4 or 5 broadcasters not asking for a boycott or not wanting to take part, well, participation in Eurovision is bad enough as it is. Like, a few countries, like North Macedonia and Montenegro a couple of years ago, and Bulgaria right now, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, they have struggled to take part in Eurovision because of finances and paying off whatever debt that needs to be paid off. So, could this boycott from the broadcasters that are financially viable to take part in Eurovision, will it break the camel's back? Probably not. We have we have Germany, Italy, Spain, well for now, UK and Italy. Oh no, and France. They're the countries that or at least their primary broadcasters provide the most financial backing for the contest. Having at least one of them, which is Spain, that alone is much worse than having Ireland, Slovenia, and the Netherlands saying we won't take part. So, yeah. Will the EU want to take that risk? Well, they did say countries that do not want to take part are more than welcome to not take part. So it sounds like, yeah, we can take the risk. I can't argue with that. If they say they can handle it, they can handle it. But of course, that's only going to make fans more outraged. So even with outraged fans, there are still going to be people watching Eurovision, no matter what. Like 2024, people try to boycott Eurovision, like just in the first year that October 7th happened. And instead of a dip in viewership, it actually stayed steadily the same, if not slightly increased the viewership than last year, and maybe the year before that. So I don't see what changes there's going to be. I'm not sure if anything is certain yet. I'm not sure if this is going to keep going on for the next year or two. Maybe it's just me just looking at the drama, the tea, and so many backs and forths. I understand that people are so critical of the Australian government, but that's not going to stop its broadcaster Khan from saying we want to take part in Eurovision, because that's what people don't pay attention to. They think participation in Eurovision regards their national government, not the broadcaster that would be responsible for the participant under the flag of the country which it is representing. That's just food for thought. I hope a solution does come about. It's not guaranteed as of now. One can hope that a solution does come about that makes a majority of people very happy. But there won't be. At least not now. Or in the next few months, as of this recording. Protesting Peru residents blocked trains to Machu Picchu. Train services to the Inca citadel of Machu Picchu, Peru's main tourist attraction, were suspended Monday as protesting residents place logs and rocks on the tracks, police and Peru Rail said. A UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1983, the ancient fortified complex receives some 4,500 visitors on average each day, many of them foreigners, according to the tourism ministry. Authorities have not given a figure for standard tourists or an evacuation plan. Residents are demanding that a new company be chosen to run the buses that ferry visitors from the Aguas Calientes train station at the foot of Machu Picchu to the site itself. Visitors arrive at Aguas Calientes from the city of Cusco, the Inca Empire's ancient capital, some 110 kilometers, 68 miles away. The previous bus firm's contract had come to an end after a 30-year concession, but services have continued, presumably by the same company. Residents similarly pressed home their social demands in January last year, when some 1,200 tourists had to be evacuated from Machu Picchu, some without ever laying eyes on the site. A year earlier, Machu Picchu was closed for 25 days during protests over the impeachment and arrest of then-President Pedro Castillo. Machu Picchu was built in the 15th century at an altitude of 2,500 meters, about 8,200 feet, on orders from the Inca ruler, Pachacutec. It is considered a marvel of architecture and engineering. Tourism is key to the economy of Peru. So hold on a minute. So a bus firm, their contract came to an end after 30 years, yet the same bus company is still running services to and from Aguas Calientes to the site of Machu Picchu. Maybe it's not the buses, it could be the trains. But what would I know? I don't know much about Peru's transportation infrastructure or the tourism of Peru. But I know transportation in the country is mostly limited, and not just because of its geography. It's very hilly and very high altitude as well. Well, that's what I'm thinking. I didn't know it was possible for a company running over its contract to still resume services. Why would they do that? Who knows? Who knows? But I've never got around to what the protests are even about. Oh, right. Okay. Arrest of then President Pedro Castillo. Wow. Well, there you go. Must be serious. Well, it got my attention. It certainly got my attention for sure. Man arrested after drone breaches airspace restrictions near Windsor Castle before Trump's visit. On September 16th, 2025, authorities detained a 37-year-old individual residing in West London for operating a drone that violated the restricted airspace around Windsor prior to President Trump's visit. The arrest followed temporary airspace restrictions put in place from September 16th to September 18th over Windsor and Chequers to secure the area for Trump's state visit and related events. Thames Valley Police deployed a significant security operation, including armed forces, air patrols, and river patrols, to enforce the ban on all aircraft, including drones, near Windsor. Inspector Matthew Wilkinson explained that for an occasion of this scale, stringent airspace controls have been implemented and emphasized that any violations will be met with firm enforcement. The arrest highlights the government's efforts to protect public safety during the visit, which includes political talks with Prime Minister Starmer and a state banquet hosted by King Charles III. So you have security measures to protect public safety for a state visit between a leader of the US and the UK, along with the UK's current reigning monarch, yet nothing of that aspect has even been mentioned. Like, there was nothing mentioned about public safety when the protests happened in London just a couple of days prior. You know, Unite the Kingdom protests and stand against racism. Of course, people will say there was police presence there, but how much of that police presence and security measures has anyone ever heard about when those protests were going on? Wow. That, it's not. I know I'm not the only one having this thought. I'm certain that people that support Palestine would also say the same thing. How is it that there is security measures for a state visit, but not enough security measures in place for when the process of Unite the Kingdom and stand up to racism happened? And you know what? They're just these same people putting in these measures. There'll be a few that will even laugh in your face. Because why should we care about your safety? You don't serve any purpose or have any significant influence over the world. So why does that matter? They only give a damn when those said people come in big flocks, whether it be hundreds of thousands or even millions of people. That's when they'll do something. But that doesn't mean they'll give any more of a damn than they currently do right now. If any. It's just outrageous. No, actually, that's an understatement. I don't know what to say. I'm genuinely speechless. Of course, I understand the safety measures needed to be put in place, but where was any of that when public gatherings and protests were taking place? If anything, I think there should be more for public gatherings, because you don't know what members of the public are capable of. And I'm not pointing things at anyone. It's just a safety concern that I have in my mind if I were to do something like this. And even I have these thoughts, that's not even enough. There's likely a committee, there's going to be some kind of procedure regarding gatherings like this. There's so much more. However, I didn't see that practically applied here, mainly with the process in London, as we've heard with with the upcoming state visit. Surely someone's going to say something, but so what? Too little, too late. PayPal, Bitcoin, Ether, other cryptos soon added to P2P payments. On Monday, PayPal unveiled PayPal Links in the US, a new peer-to-peer payment method allowing cryptocurrency transfers. The launch follows PayPal's broader modernization plan, including a $300 million infrastructure upgrade and expansion of crypto payments. PayPal Links enables users to create one-time private links to send or request money via text or email, supporting Bitcoin, Ethereum, and PYUSD transfers instantly. Diego Scotti, general manager of PayPal's consumer group, explained that payments are now integrated seamlessly into everyday digital communications like texts, messages, and emails. The feature excludes personal payments from IRS 1099-K reporting and is planning to be introduced soon in the UK, Italy, and additional markets. I keep saying, whether people like it or not, and everyone has every right to be skeptical about cryptocurrency and its very, very swift and incognito payments, and also the blockchain, which is, I don't know where I was going with that. But I know one thing's for sure, and I have said this many times. Cryptocurrency is going to be the future. There's going to be a rise of people using cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is its own category, I think, in its own right. Cryptos like Ethereum, X, Doge, if people still pay attention to that, XRP, any cryptocurrencies whatever comes to people's minds, they will likely be legal tender to, or at least, or at least to the point that they will be used as a way to pay for goods and services wherever you are around the world. Well, except for countries where crypto in general is practically restricted or banned. However, for most of the world that has not paid attention or not even aware of cryptocurrencies yet, they need to start preparing themselves for what is to come for the future of digital finance, or at least digital payments. Because if companies and businesses adapt and facilitate payments in crypto now, they're likely set for life. I've heard from many people, not just guests I had on in my two podcasts in the past. However, from many articles, news outlets, and other cryptocurrency experts, that whilst crypto in its valuation is very volatile and it's hard to predict, and you could lose out millions if you invest into any of them without knowing what you're getting yourself into, which I wouldn't advise doing. Don't get into something if you have no idea what you're in for, and if you're willing to take the risk, if any. There's a sudden rise. There's a sudden rise in popularity for cryptocurrencies, and from what I've heard, it's becoming a, a rising alternative to using fiat money. I'm talking British pound, US dollar, Japanese yen, the Korean won, the South African rand, the euro, any currencies that is backed by a central bank based in the country that that currency is used in. What are those currencies even backed by? If it's backed by something, then fair enough. What not many people know is cryptocurrency. It doesn't have to be pegged to anything. Well, it has to be pegged to something, so people are aware of how valuations go up and down. However, with cryptocurrencies in general, there is no control by any organization or even governments. And a lot of these cryptocurrencies are recorded on what is known as the blockchain, which essentially is a public record of which recipient has been receiving or spending their crypto on whatever goods or services they were purchasing or receiving, however it works. And if there's anything that doesn't seem right in one of the crypto payments or exchanges, if it doesn't fit right with the blockchain, it's instantly rejected. And with the blockchain that is used to keep track of crypto payments, we can look at records from anyone that uses crypto, especially companies and even national governments if they use crypto, which I've heard at least one country has taken advantage of whatever Bitcoin that they have in their reserves. I think the blockchain and its operation is what people in power are afraid of. Because if their transactions are made public on the blockchain for everyone to see and for everyone to be looking at majority of the world's population, they will be outraged. They'll be furious to see if any funding or spending from any government or company is used to go towards projects that may potentially enrich no one but themselves. And I'm not suggesting anyone is doing that at the moment. It's just a hypothetical. It's a likely it's a likely case scenario. If there are people in it for themselves, they would be worried if those records are made public. And it would be do all and end all for those people. There will be a lawsuit, they'll be taken to court, if found guilty, put them in the doghouse, and spend the rest of their years or decades regretting every decision they have made in their lives. So, yeah, That's just me from what I know. As I know people have more information on this, but that's all I know from the top of my head and whatever knowledge that I have. No other choice but to at least acknowledge somehow. But hey, at least I'm better off knowing that information than not knowing anything about it whatsoever. So I'll take it. Ozone layer on track to rebound by mid-century, WMO reports. On September 16th, 2025, the United Nations and the World Meteorological Organization released the Ozone Bulletin 2024, noting that the Antarctic ozone hole was reduced in size compared to previous years. This improvement follows decades of international efforts beginning with the 1975 Vienna Convention and the 1987 Montreal Protocol that targeted phasing out ozone depleting substances widely used in refrigeration and aerosol sprays. The bulletin reported that in September 2024, the Antarctic ozone hole developed more slowly and showed delayed depletion, reaching a peak deficit equivalent to 46.1 million tons less ozone than the 1990 to 2020 average, signaling early signs of the ozone layer's recovery. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres stated, "The ozone layer is healing today," and WMO Secretary-General Celeste Solu noted, "There is no coincidence," reflecting the success of global cooperation and scientific guidance. If current regulations continue unchanged, the ozone layer is expected to return to its 1980 levels by around 2066 over Antarctica, which could lead to a decrease in UV-related health issues and environmental harm globally. Well, firstly, it's great to hear some good news regarding the ozone. Well, I've heard it for a few years now, but yeah, it's nice to see there's positive scientific progress somewhere around the world. And the thing is, it's a long-term plan. I remember people talking about issues with the ozone back in the 70s or 80s at the earliest. And everyone around the world got together and actually tried to tackle the issue at hand. And they did. And everyone was jumping up and down and celebrating. The thing is, how is it there was so much positive progress regarding the ozone layer, yet we never hear the same, we never see the same energy, vibes, or the same amount of effort being applied to climate change? Well, if Risk was here right now, he will say it's a big fucking hoax. I'm not going to argue with that, but I can't agree too much with it either. I understand that our climate is ever so changing, and there's going to be fluctuations in temperature and the air for sure. However, no matter how hard we try to reverse these effects, they're still likely to happen anyway. But that's just me. Of course, Risk is certainly against climate change, and he doesn't want to hear anything about climate change, because he believes it's a lie. Well, it's not exactly a lie. It's a whole load of fear mongering. It's trying to scare people to doing something that prohibits them living the life to the fullest, not going out, not driving their cars, or driving petrol-powered vehicles. Instead, drive an electric car, eat some bugs instead of meat, and stay within your city, because you have everything that you need. Why do you have to leave? That, fair enough, fair enough. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't plant any trees to improve biodiversity and habitat for animals and wildlife. I'm all for that, and I hope that continues. But to mix it with climate change, I'm sorry, I don't vibe with it. You can preserve the environment, just don't scare people into it. It's not genuine, and it's certainly not going to get people interested in taking such initiatives. Because all there is to fighting climate change is like, if we don't do it now, then the planet's going to get hotter and we're going to pretty much suffer physically. Well, there have been hotter temperatures before. The thing is, you have to notice, you have to drink enough water, have a balanced diet, and try and go out every so often. That's it. And of course, there would be very hot temperatures that aren't suitable for habitation. But what's going to stop people from establishing civilization in the hottest of climates, and even the driest of climates? Millions of years ago, there have been cities that have been built in parts of the world where such climates have existed millions of years ago, and they did pretty well, especially agriculturally, where they can grow food to feed the mouths of the families that lived in those cities and settlements. Come on, so much for me to think about. There's nothing to stop people from doing what they want to do. Just remember, it's not that deep. The world isn't going to end, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything with your life. It's important to go out, provide and contribute to your community, and maybe improve the wildlife, because who doesn't love wildlife? I like wildlife. Why doesn't anyone else? That's something I like to see. My conscience is clear, Harry says as he defends controversial memoir. The Duke of Sussex has said his conscience is clear after speaking out against members of the royal family as he defended his controversial memoir, Spare. Speaking to The Guardian during a visit to Kiev, which followed several days in the UK, Harry told the newspaper his autobiography, published in 2023, was a series of corrections to stories already out there. Following his visit to the UK, which saw the Duke reunited with his father, the King, in their first face-to-face meeting for more than a year, he said he would like to spend more time in the country, and that the past week had definitely brought them back closer. His Kiev visit was with a team from his Invictus Games Foundation after an invitation from the Ukrainian government and Olga Rudneva, chief executive of the Superhuman Center, an orthopedics clinic and rehabilitation center for adults and children affected by the war in Ukraine. Harry told The Guardian, I know that speaking out annoys some people, and it goes against the narrative. The book? It was a series of corrections to stories already out there. One point of view had been put out, and it needed to be corrected. He added, I don't believe that I aired my dirty laundry in public. It was a difficult message, but I did it in the best way possible. My conscience is clear. It is not about revenge, it is about accountability, he said in the interview. In Kiev, the Duke participated in a panel discussion at the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War, during which he paid tribute to the wives and mothers who kept their loved ones on the straight and narrow. They deserve as much respect as anyone who serves. You know what? Fair enough. Of course, Harry has been getting so much criticism and stick throughout his time after leaving the royal family. You know what? That's just how it is. Life will be rough. Not because of the lifestyle you live, but mainly comes down to perspectives. How people see what these stories are all about. Even with things even if the context is accurate, the way that the context has been said can be twisted. The words can change to the point it could be made out to be something else that is completely separate to what the context was originally. So you know what? I'll give Harry credit for having the courage to speak out on his life and, of course, the difficulties that he's been going through. Nothing against the royal family. However, it's not easy having such a lifestyle where you're not just sheltered from the difficulties of living the British life, but also living a lifestyle where you have everything on a silver platter and you always have house service staff members serving you to your every kin, or at least to every need that you might need, all around the clock throughout the year. But even as good your life, and no matter how good your life is, and how grateful people should be for the lifestyle they live that most people could ever wish for, that doesn't mean people don't have problems. It's not to say you should agree with these people or have any kind of sympathy. Just know that just because someone lives a lavish lifestyle does not mean they are free or exempt or immune to other social problems. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Now, of course, this story does not change anything how people view Harry and Meghan Markle, but at least it's something. It's a start. Anyone reading this will now know and understand what the life was like, and how being separated and being absent from that way of life can be hard, and the challenges of living life the way you want to live life without having people pointing out every single detail that doesn't even need to be addressed to begin with. Texas Tech students arrested after viral incident involving Charlie Kirk mourners. At the University of Texas in Lubbock, a student was arrested after a video showing her mocking the death of Charlie Kirk went viral. Texas Governor Greg Abbott criticized the student, saying she picked the wrong school to taunt the death of Charlie Kirk. Employers and officials have signaled they will investigate and discipline individuals who celebrated Kirk's death killing. I just don't get it. Of course, I understand. And I actually know people that I went to school, college, and university that certainly do not agree with Charlie Kirk's opinions and the things he's even done in the past. And that's okay. Those people don't have to actually like the guy, nor they have to mourn for his passing. However, to celebrate the death of any person, and of course, to trample over a vigil of a person that has passed, is absolutely low. And this is for any person. It does not matter if you don't agree with people's political views, their beliefs, the things that the person has said or done. If there's a person that you genuinely do not like, do not stoop to their level as bad as you think they are. You can disagree with that person all you like, but do not celebrate that person's death. Nor should you trespass or trample over someone's vigil whilst there are people mourning and grieving. Because what if you were in that position? What if you were to pass away or died from whatever cause, and you have groups of people celebrating that you died, and then someone trampled over your vigil? Now, presumably, if you were to be brought back to life and hearing those stories about you, surely you would have every right to be outraged. People do not have to agree with you. They don't have to like you. But to celebrate a person's death and trespass on a vigil is not the way to go. It's just below human, in my opinion. No, it's not an opinion, this is actually objective. And if I was to say this about anyone that is left-leaning, like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, I'd say the same thing. Because no matter the views, the beliefs of a person, how can you celebrate someone dying? That is fucked up. And if people were to lose their job from posting their reactions to someone dying, I think they deserve it. That's not going to change their opinion, which everyone is entitled to. They should at least understand the consequences to their actions. Yeah. And whatever happens to this person, now, I'm not going to ask for the death penalty, because, again, someone already died and there's already celebrations going on. That's just awful. But whatever the punishment this person gets, hopefully it reflects the person's actions. I think a lifetime imprisonment should be the expected minimum. At least 15 years. The bare minimum is 15 years, in my opinion. Anyway, again, I know people. They don't like Charlie Kirk. And that's okay. I absolutely understand that people that I know don't like Charlie Kirk. They don't like his opinions. And of course, they do not have to mourn his death. However, to celebrate that the guy has passed, cold-blooded, and in a very gruesome and inhumane manner, literally shot from the neck, I don't know how else to tell those people, other than get some professional help, and also look at yourself in the mirror and think about what you're getting yourself into. That's all I have to say. And this is also going to be the last time I actually talk about this situation. Not just on this podcast, but ever. Not that I'm sick and tired of hearing of this story. I think we just have to people have to move on from this. Of course, people who are still mourning and grieving, they can continue to mourn. And of course, for those that do not like Charlie Kirk, you are entitled to your own opinions. You don't have to like the guy, you don't have to agree with what he's saying. But don't celebrate his death. People could lose their jobs because of that. In fact, tens of thousands of people in the US have lost their jobs because they posted online posts about them celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. So please, don't make the same mistake. I hope I'm not asking for much. This is a warning. Seeing this death, this isn't about politics anymore. This is a spiritual warfare. This is about good versus evil. You don't have to like Kirk, but yet you could still be good. Or you could like Charlie Kirk, you could be loyal to Charlie Kirk, but yet be an absolute piece of shit. I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying that seeing this death of a well-known political figure or activist, it has opened a lot of people's eyes. And this is starting to open a lot of people's eyes about what is to come for the next few years. If there are people that are going to be celebratory or celebrate that a person has died simply because they don't like what the person has said or done, I just don't know what else to say. And I will say this again. You don't have to like the person. You don't have to agree with this person. But celebrating that the person is no longer alive is just messed up. And it will cost you not just your job, or whatever job you're working at, but it will haunt you for the rest of your life. The internet's forever, and everyone's gonna know. So yeah, So back to the story about this person at the Vigil. Again, whatever punishment is in line, I hope it really reflects that person's actions. I would say the death penalty, because again, this will trample down to the same territory as the outrage that we've gotten in the last few days as of this recording. Don't stoop to the same level as the people that you despise, because you would be no better than that person themselves, those people themselves. So yeah, that's all I have to say. And stay safe. That is the episode.